Integrated 3, this is problem 1-36. So in this problem, it's a stoplight problem, so that means it's kind of showing a common mistake that people make. And so what it says is George was solving this equation, 2x minus 1 times x plus 3 equals 4, and he got these two solutions. And Jeffrey came along and said, you made a big mistake. You said each factor equal to 0, but it's not equal to 0, it's equal to 4. So you have to set each factor equal to 4 and then solve. And that's what I think he did there. Who's correct? Show George and Jeffrey how to solve this equation. Be sure that you are correct. To be sure that you're correct, check your solutions. I have a feeling if I check these two solutions and put them back in here, they're not going to work. Right? Because if I said 1/2 of 2 is 1 minus 1, well, that makes 0 right here, and that would 0 that out, and that's not equal to -4. So I know whoever did this one, that one's not right. So I would like to use the zero product property, but I can't because I have a 4. Zero product property that says that if something times something else, if you multiply two things together and the answer is 0, one of the two things is bound to be 0. You can't have an answer of 0 in a multiplication problem unless one of the two factors, or maybe both of them, are 0. So we use that's called the zero product property. We use that fact when we're factoring quadratics because it's a convenient way to solve them. This one looks all nice and easy to solve, but the only problem is that's not a 0 there. So now we got to go back, multiply these back out, subtract that 4 off them, then factor them again and set them equal to 0 and use the zero product property. So it's kind of a long problem. So the first question is, how do you multiply these? It's been all summer and you haven't been doing this, so if you remember how to multiply them. Well, I guess I'll show you the CPM way first. The area model box way. So many of you have been in these kinds of books where they use an area model. So you can take each factor, here's a factor, 2x minus 1, and here's another factor, x plus 3. And you make this box, and it's called an area model because you know how length times width equals area? So inside the box you write the answer to the length times width, you write the area. So 2x times x is 2x squared. And you can think of algebra tiles if you've ever used those. It's 2x squared. X times -1 is negative x. 2x times 3 is 6x. And 3 times -1 is -3. Okay, and then these two are both x terms. They're like terms, so I can combine like terms. So now I have 2x squared. The 6 and the -1 make 5x. Like that. Okay, so if you're not used to this, and that's equal to 4, isn't it? If you're not used to this, you can use FOIL. You can go 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 3, right? This is the this is how I used to do it. -1 times x, and then -1 times 3. These two right here make 5x, so I rewrite it. 2x squared. Either way, I got the same thing, right? So now let's see, I would like to get rid of that 4, so I'm going to subtract 4. And now, if I could just factor this again, I would like to factor it so I can use the zero product property. So I just need to know what times what equals that. So I can kind of do that whole area model thing backwards. Like, now this time, I have the inside part, like I have 2x squared, and you can think of those algebra tiles if you want to. I've got 2x squared here, and I've got negative 7 here. I'm not sure what I have here and here yet. The way I can figure out what I have here and here is I'll usually make what I call a diamond problem. And if you've been doing CPM for a long time, you've done a lot of diamond problems. So I take the coefficient of the x squared, the x squared times the constant term, and that's what goes in the top of the diamond. So 2 times negative 7 is negative 14, and then the coefficient of x goes down here. And I want two numbers that multiply to make negative 14 and add to make 5. So I'm thinking 7 times 2 is 14, and I think if I make the 2 negative, then that should work. That times that is that. That works. So I'm going to put those in my area model box. And then I'm going to try to figure out what are the factors that go up here. Like what times what it equals 2x squared. Well, I know there's going to be some x's, because x times x. I want my 2 over here, because if I put it up there, that's not going to work, because 2 times nothing equals 7, or 2 times some kind of fraction, and I don't want that. So I'm going to put the 2 on this side, because I see that 2 right there. And now I have that this times this equals this. Oh, sorry, I didn't put my x's on there. And then x times something is 7. It's going to be x times 7. 2 times negative this times this makes this. This times this makes this. So now I have, these are my factors. So I hope this is a review. I hope you've done this before. If not, then I probably went way too fast. And I guess we'll have to talk about that. So let me know if you don't know how to factor. And now I have this, I have something times something equals 0. So that means either x minus 1 equals 0, or 2x plus 7 equals 0. One of those two things must equal 0, or else when I multiply them, I wouldn't have a 0. So if I add 1 to both sides, then I get x equals 1. And what do I have to do here? I have to subtract 7. Negative 7 equals 2x, and I can divide by 2. And I can have x equals negative 7/2. So now I have two answers, and it said make sure that I'm right by plugging them in. I'm going to plug in the 1, because that should be easy. Here's the original problem. 2 times 1 is 2, minus 1 is 1. And then 1 plus 3 is 4. 1 times 4 equals 4, so I know that worked. Negative 7/2. Well, the 2's are going to cancel out, and I think I'm going to get negative 7 minus 1. I think this is going to be negative 8. And then negative 7/2 plus 3. Oh, I'm going to do that on scratch paper. Negative 7/2. 3 is the same as, how many halves is 3? 6/2. 6/2, right? So that's going to give me negative 1/2. Okay, so this part's going to be negative 1/2. Negative 1/2 times negative 8 does equal 4. So I plugged them both in, both my answers, and I know that they both work. And so that was kind of a long problem, but that is how you do it.